Our first speaker is Ken Brinsden. He's Managing Director and CEO of Pilbara Minerals. Ken's a mining engineer with 25 years experience, having graduated from WASM in 1993. Between graduation and 2006, he worked for WMC Resources, Normandy, Central Norseman Gold Corporation, Goldfields and Aluka in production management, brownfields and greenfields mine development roles. Mr. Brinsson was then both COO and MD at Atlas Iron between 2006 and July 2015, contributing to the substantial growth of Atlas Iron from a junior explorer to a significant Pilbara iron ore producer. Ken joined Pilbara as CEO in January 2016. He has led the significant growth of Pilbara Minerals through corporate development, financing and project execution at Pilgangoora, such that it has become one of the leading lithium projects globally and facilitated Pilbara's entry into the ASX 200. Please welcome Ken.
Thank you, Duncan, and thanks, ladies and gentlemen. A pleasure to be with you, and thanks very much for your attention. How good would it be to be back in iron ore and/or gold again? But no, we're with lithium, and we would still suggest that you've got a very, very bright future. At least Pilgangoora is going to be an important part of it. So all the usual disclaimers, and I'm sure most of you have heard at least part of the story. We're part of what's now becoming a very important lithium raw material province, not far from Port Hedland in the North Pilbara. The combined sort of resource base, Wodgina, Pilgangoora, when you include both Pilbara Minerals and Altura, it's huge, and the mineral endowment is really, really significant. And given its incredible proximity to both Port Hedland for the purpose of port access, road access, and proximity to sort of key Asian markets, it is now arguably the world's premier lithium raw material province, and we have the lion's share of it. So very, very happy to be developing what we think is a really important project for the industry. So we're producing a 6% spodumene concentrate, having gone through the construction cycle and the commissioning and the ramp up, and we also produce a primary tantalite concentrate moving into a final concentrate in the coming year or two. And it has been an amazing story. I sort of pinch myself sometimes when I think about 4 years ago being here and talking about Pilbara Minerals for the first time. The first drill hole went into Pilgangoora in November 2018, and the first ship of 6% spodumene concentrate left Port Hedland Harbour less than 4 years later in October 2018. So a really incredible effort from the team. I'm incredibly proud of what they've achieved in the development of what is a really significant operation. And we'll use the video to give you a sense of what's been constructed. It's a really significant mine in the lithium world, and it's a big operation that is likely to get much bigger over time. So the first installed processing capacity at Pilgangoora in our Stage 1 project, it's 2 million ore tonnes processed for about 320,000 spodumene concentrate tonnes and about roughly 300,000 pounds of tantalite production. It's a really sophisticated facility. It stretches over from ROM pad to the process water recovery dam. It's about 900 metres. Fully integrated HMS recovery, heavy media separation, but also fully integrated with flotation recovery. And the team has done an incredible job building out the pro rata capacity in the design. And we're now well down that path. And you can see that through the production cycle since we commenced in August last year. Pretty steady growth in production to the point where in the May and June periods, albeit post a shutdown right at the end of June, we're realising about 85 to 90% of the underlying plant capacity. So the throughput is really strong. In fact, we'd argue there's probably latent capacity in Stage 1. The guys have developed sophisticated maintenance management programs, and we're now well operating at sort of 85% utilisation, which we'd argue is a great result for a facility of this scale. And we're still working on the recovery, and that's really the last tick in the box at Pilbara. In June, we operated at about 55% of the lithia recovery against design of 75%. But for periods, we get a very strong response from the plant, so say in the range of 60 to 65% for about 30 or 40% of the time during that same June quarter. So the challenge in the operation now is the last of the tweaks in the facility, including some modifications to the original design, relatively minor, but nonetheless very important as they contribute to lithia recovery. There's a bit of confusion about what it means to have iron in your feed. So often we'll have people play back to us, oh, you've got iron in the resource. Well, actually the iron in the resource is really low. While we talk about iron for the purpose of the lithia flotation is that you introduce iron through the milling process. Obviously the balls in the mill are getting smaller, releasing iron, so that iron has to be removed. And we found that the plant was undersized in low intensity magnetic separation units. So we're backfilling them, and as a result, we're confident that we'll continue to see the plant's recovery improve. Certainly the test work and the prior test work now in parallel to existing operations, we achieved design recovery. So we're confident in our capacity to get there. We'll have continued to work on those plant improvements and likely hit the design recovery by about the end of this year. So a great result for the team and also going to be a key contributor to our cost base reducing over time. Given the scale in Pilbara, it's a massive pegmatite system, huge mineral endowment of spodumene. It's already a 225 million tonne resource, 108 million tonne reserve. That's likely to get bigger over time. As you continue to keep drilling, it's inevitable that you'll turn up more spodumene, and even exploration in the last few months has continued to prove that to be the case. So there's an opportunity to expand. So we think about our stage 2 and stage 3 operations. But we're not going to blindly expand. We want to make sure that we're expanding consistent with our customers' demands. And as a result, we've been rethinking our stage 2 capacity and how that gets developed over time. I'll come back to that in a little bit more detail. So in stage 2, the original design had us spending $235 million to realise a total processing capacity of 5 million tonnes per annum and about 800 to 840,000 spodumene concentrate tonnes. But an obvious conclusion to draw from the current impasse in the market, where customers are still catching up with their chemical conversion capacity. So the reality is we've been more successful in the development and ramp up of our spodumene concentrate operation in comparison to our customers' capacity to deliver the chemical conversion capacity. So a lesson to come out of that is to be really careful about how you think about the subsequent expansion. So the team's been putting a lot of hard work in to try and understand with our good friends at Primero, to try and understand how we can subdivide the stage 2 project so that we can better match incremental expansion capacity to the capacity of our customers' chemical facilities. And there's some really innovative thinking coming out of that is going to materially lower the invested capital up front in stage 2. So you would think about the original estimate being, say, 235 million Australian dollars. We'll be looking to spend something like about $50 million in the first phase of the stage 2 expansion. Internally, we call it stage 2 light. So in stage 2 light, we'll spend a lot less money. We'll release more capacity out of the existing facilities and where they're supplemented to ensure that we've got a better match ultimately with the customer's demands. And I'll come back to the customer piece to talk about that in a bit more detail. So at Pilbara, we've worked really hard on being as well connected to the lithium ion supply chain as we can possibly be, to look to a diverse customer group, but also to those people that are significant players in the industry, and even better if they've got some balance sheet strength. So out of that engagement in China, we've established relationships with Great Wall Motor Company, an amazing organisation very, very innovative and now starting to turn out some incredible products. They take us around the equivalent of the Nuremberg Ring every time we visit them in Baoding. And the little Chinese guy takes you around the lap, I kid you not, like 200 kilometres an hour in the latest Great Wall. And you wouldn't know, these days, you would not know you weren't in a Lexus or a BMW. The quality in the vehicles is really, really high, and they're a very, very sophisticated organisation, now heavily invested in the battery scene as they work towards electrification of their vehicle offering and batteries for energy storage. So that's the Great Wall story. Similarly, with Ganfeng and General Lithium, the old guard of the lithium industry, the guys that are best integrated with the battery players, including now major exports to the tier 1 battery manufacturers in Japan and Korea. So ultimately Panasonic batteries and LG Chem batteries. So they're the important guys, they're the right guys to be integrated with. And then the piece de resistance is the relationship with Posco. So most of you would know the brand and you would associate Posco with steelmaking. Well, there is a very, very big push within Posco, driven by the board to further diversify their business suite, and one of 3 that they've chosen is battery raw materials. So they're developing a huge battery raw materials park in Gwangyang in South Korea, all of the included battery raw materials and cathode materials. So lithium hydroxide, cobalt sulfate receival, nickel sulfate production, and manganese sulfate receival, so to ultimately make cathode material. So very, very heavy investment, billions of dollars. And our subset of that, in the relationship with Posco, is in the lithium hydroxide facility. So fantastic relationship, and one that we're looking to take advantage of. And then when you think about what Korea is up to, they're a big mover in the lithium-ion battery scene. They are now the go-to country for the highest quality batteries, the volume growth, and the right technology. So basically higher energy density. And the global car manufacturers are swarming all over Korea, trying to work out how they can get the big players, LG Chem and Samsung SDI and SK Innovation, to invest more heavily in cell making capacity. And of course, Posco is incredibly well positioned, we'd argue Pilbara alongside, to be able to be lithium raw material supply base to that incredible growth that's going on in the Korean market. So yeah, really looking forward to how all that unfolds in the coming months and year or two. So to close the deal with Posco, we're into the detailed documentation now with an expectation that that'll all be resolved in the coming months. And construction on that facility should have started late this year. So really important part of Pilbara Minerals' future. Another important part of our future is how we think about continuing to integrate the Pilgangoora mine, being a really important baseload mine for the industry, more deeply within the lithium-ion supply chain. So what we've considered is the potential to sell down a mine equity interest stake. We're now well into that process. It's starting to get to the pointy end. We've been pretty happy with the engagement that's come out of the process. I think the industry understands the significance of the Pilgangoora mine site, its scale, its location, fantastic mining jurisdiction here in Western Australia. So with all that as a backdrop, it has absolutely attracted the right level of interest. Now, we can't guarantee that there's a deal, but we are happy with the counterparties that are involved in the final leg of the process. So we'll see how we go in the course of the next month or two as well here. So whilst there's been a hiccup in the market and everyone's incredibly focused on China and the pricing dynamic in China, it's certainly been impacted, and the chemical conversion industry has been impacted in the last 18 months. But it belies the bigger picture story about what's happening in the lithium-ion supply chain. There is huge moves being made downstream to position for growth, basically to ensure that there is growth happening in the supply chain, and to position for quality amongst the right resource base. And that's where a lot of this interest in our partnering process has come from. And of course, from our point of view, we look at that the other way, and we look downstream and think, well, there is certain counterparties that we would really like to sort of be more deeply integrated with. So obviously we're hopeful that there's a match there. But the point to be made out of all that is that no one is slowing down. There is, in fact, if you, even in China, where of course the price has come off, but actually, I'd argue there's still nothing wrong with the number of EVs that are being manufactured, the number of hybrids, the amount that they're investing in energy storage, which, by the way, is also being probably grossly underestimated. So that's the China story, but in the meantime, in Japan and Korea, global car manufacturers are crawling all over those guys trying to work out how they can get bigger and bigger battery contracts. So the medium term, the longer term for the lithium raw materials story is still incredibly strong. And that's why we have a lot of faith in our position in that market. So let me share one more anecdote with you that I think helps sort of, you know, in a way sort of shape the relationship between Pilbara and the rest of the market. There's really only 4 big material baseload mines in lithium raw materials in WA. There's the greater Pilbara, so ourselves and adjacent to Altura. There's Wodgina. And of course there's the old warhorse being Greenbushes, and then over time there's the Mount Holland mine. They're the mines that have got the massive resource base, the mining scale, the capacity to create very large processing facilities over time. So let's say, for argument's sake, 100,000 LCE equivalent. There is only really those 4 mines that go for decades, 20, 30, 40 years. Think of it a bit like Yantakajina in the iron ore game. That's the sort of scale that I'm referring to, or equivalent scale, in respect of lithium raw material supply. But Pilbara is the only one left that's independent. The other 3 are now owned by majors in some way, shape or form. So we think, out of all that, we have a very important part to play in the future of the lithium raw material game, and that Pilbara is a highly valued asset. So we think we're going to play a big part in that important growth to come. And we're set for a bright future. So we've got optimisation to do at Pilbara. We'll continue to work on the last of the ramp up in the plant. A lot of that relates to the improvements in recovery. That has a benefit with respect to our cost base, which is heading towards about $350 a tonne per spodumene concentrate tonne delivered to China. That's by about June next year. In the meantime, we're taking a measured view about what we do with respect to our existing capacity, because we have actually throttled the mine back in the June quarter, and we're doing the same thing in the September quarter. We'll take a similar practical perspective to the way we roll out our expansion capacity, and we'll take a stepwise approach. Lastly, we do value that participation in the supply chain where you can link the mine to more chemical conversion capacity. As an operating model, we think that makes a lot of sense. We like the idea that we can be great at mining and deliver a fantastic high quality concentrate. We're not pretending that we're chemical experts, but we love the idea that we can work with those people that are. And a good example of that is via the relationship with Posco. So you put it all together, and yes, there has been impacts in the last 12 months, and the lithium sector has suffered a bit as China has come off the boil, but I don't think it changes the big picture view, which is it's likely I'll be talking to you in another 4 years' time, and about 40 or 50% of you will have the Tesla or the plug-in hybrid. I look forward to that day. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Ken. That was great. Any questions from the floor? Looks like you're getting off lightly there, Ken. Thanks very much again.